They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Curry, way downtown. Bang! Bang! Oh, what a shot from Curry! With 0.6 of a second remaining.
Yo, what's up, everybody? This is the Outlet Pass Podcast. I am your resident JT McConnell. The homie. More importantly, my real name, Justin DiVirgilio, coming at you with episode 33 of the Outlet Pass Podcast. And just to remind you real quick before I get into anything, let me just plug. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at _JDVirgilio. That's at _JDVirgilio. You can follow the podcast on Instagram at the Outlet Pass Podcast and on Twitter at pass_podcast. You can also subscribe, rate it 5 stars, review, like, comment, follow on all of the following platforms: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube. Now, I just wanted to talk about the recent hiatus of the podcast and the direction of it moving forward for this NBA season and beyond. My former co-host and good friend, Dante Parentozzi, will not be doing it with me unless he has free time. So most likely, unless I need him in a real pinch, he will not be on it, but I thank him for his service and dedicating the time he did while juggling working and going to school all last fall and winter. So thank you very much. The idea now is that I will be releasing a podcast every Wednesday. It's going to be about 30 to 45 minutes, I'm guessing in my head, with either a guest to talk with me, either that be a friend or a writer or someone within the media world. And if not, it's just going to be me telling you my opinions. Because I figured if I can't find anybody to commit the way I am committed to this, why not do it myself and put it out and see how it works? And obviously, it's going to be more of a challenge to do that. But I think I'm up for it, and I'm ready to commit full-time to this completely, be on a consistent schedule. And I hope that you guys listen to it and enjoyed it. And if you don't, let me know. If you do, let me know. If I say some whack shit on the podcast, tell me I said some whack shit. That's at _JDVirgilio on Twitter and Instagram. And if I said some dope shit, let me know I said some dope shit. That's at _JDVirgilio on Twitter and Instagram. Markelle Fultz and his odd predicament has reared its ugly head once again on my phone, my timeline, and through ESPN and Ball is Life. When I see Markelle Fultz taking jump shot videos and people saying that it's fixed and we're excited and all that, I just can't help but think, I don't know, and be skeptical because of what we've seen the past 2 seasons when we didn't know for about, a year to 16 months what was wrong with Markelle Fultz. And then when we finally found out the diagnosis for him, I don't know. It's not a common injury. It's not really mentioned a lot. People didn't know what it was, myself included. I had to look it up. Then, when looking up thoracic outlet syndrome, which it is called, I then found out that Landry Fields, former New York Knick and Toronto Raptor, I believe, didn't make it through his NBA career because of it. Now, I am not one of the people who believes the injury is total bullshit. That's just not me. At one time, before it was diagnosed and given a label and title, I did think that there was no injury because myself or someone who, or anyone else basically, unless you're a doctor, see that he looks fine. Like, there's no grimace on the face when he raises his arms. There's no struggle within the muscle when it moves, or the arm when it moves, the extremity. None of that. So it just made you think, what is going on? And it still makes you think that. Because now Markelle Fultz is starting a new season with a new team, the Orlando Magic, as the Sixers traded him there last February, giving him a new lease on his NBA life because it was much needed. Being in Philadelphia didn't work at this point in time. Completely 2 different planes for both parties. Fultz figuring out, I guess, everything in his life throughout that year and a half or so, 2 years he spent in Philadelphia, where the injury was odd, him changing his shot, all that And then the support of the fans may have been odd to him because of what he may have heard about Philadelphia prior. But that's all behind us, right? So now the jumper video surfaces of him doing one dribble pull-ups and step backs and spot up threes. And he's making them. The shot looks okay. And some free throws where, of course, one of the craziest free throws ever shot was shot by Markelle last year when it looked like a video game glitch. Now it's a new time in Orlando. First season, apparently, as of this recording on Tuesday, October 1st, I read on Legion Hoops on Twitter that apparently he will be starting in the Orlando Magic's first preseason game tonight. So not a lot of waiting the Magic fans have to do to watch him play against NBA players on the court, right? That's great. They picked up the option, $12.3 million for next season. So basically, Markelle Fultz, in my mind, and I feel like it's not too far off from what the Magic think, he has 2 years to prove that he is not Jonny Flynn. He might be Jonny Flynn. Markelle Fultz might be Jonny Flynn. That is not great. Jonny Flynn, one of the more recent busts of the past 10 years. Being an NBA draft bust is not great. There's only 60 picks, so missing on especially a lottery pick, a number 1 overall pick, is not beneficial to anybody involved, really. Being Jonny Flynn is not great. That means you're out of the league in 3 years. Markelle definitely has 4, but he didn't play at all, basically, his first 2 seasons. He played in 33 total games for the Sixers. He started 15 last year, but that doesn't really matter as much to me because you only played 33. You didn't even play 2 full months of NBA basketball consecutively. So that is worrisome. And it's also worrisome that he could be compared to Jonny Flynn, another guard. Jonny Flynn's smaller, 6 foot, but the stats are kind of comparable. In Flynn's first season, he averaged 13.5 in 81 games. Fultz averaged about 9, but again, that's 15 games. So he's shown the ability to score because he was at his normal self when he was drafted. It's the weirdest thing. This is one of the weirdest stories still. He was once a scorer and pretty good playmaker and could score at 3 levels as a guard who had length. And he wasn't a crazy athlete and he wasn't the fastest or anything, but he had a good pace to his game. Jonny Flynn, on the other hand, played on a very good Syracuse team. His team raised his abilities. They played in a lot of high-profile games in 2009, one of the peak years of the Big East in the 2000s. And then the following season, after his rookie year, he played in only 53 games. I didn't read if there was any injury, but he lost his job to the NBA veteran Luke Ridenour at the time. So losing that to a guy who was just decent, he averaged basically the same amount of points as Flynn did the previous year. Around the same amount of assists, 5-6 assists. Okay, that's all good. Not for Jonny Flynn. I mean, that's why he wound up out of the league. And Fultz being in that predicament is not favorable. It looks like it could lean that way, except the fundamental difference between that and Fultz's situation is that they don't have a point guard of the future lined up yet. So probably after the season where they evaluate how Markelle Fultz plays and how he plays with the team around him and what they believe he can become and what he can learn and add to his game, and then what they think will stay there or even regress. I don't think they're gonna want to think of regressions, but I would think that an NBA franchise takes all that into account. The fundamental difference, as I was saying, is that there's no point guard of the future for the Magic. They have a 31-year-old DJ Augustine, he's their starting point guard right now. He's a solid hand, right? Again, he's about 6'1". And then you have the 27-year-old point guard, Michael Carter-Williams, 6'7". He's bounced around the league from the Sixers to Houston to Charlotte to... That's all I got off the top of my head. Now he's on the Magic. Oh, he's on the Bulls. So at least 5 teams for Michael Carter-Williams in 6 years. That's not great. So Fultz already has a chance to become the point guard of the future. But if he doesn't and he stumbles, you could put him as one of the biggest busts of all time in NBA history, like Jonny Flynn or like Adam Morrison, the number 1 pick in the 2006 NBA draft. First pick ever for Michael Jordan as the owner of the Charlotte Bobcats, now Charlotte Hornets. Then Hasheem Thabit in the same draft as Jonny Flynn, or Darko Milicic. Just guys like that. Busts who were drafted in the lottery that were complete duds. I know I said that, I repeated myself, but just duds. That's exactly what they were, and it was self-evident through 2 to 3 years, which is really the gauging factor for where you can place a player's potential in the league. Either he's going to be a superstar, a star, a role player, a journeyman, or a foreign basketball player at that point. It remains to be seen. Fultz has already been passed by people in his draft already, basically only because he hasn't played. Jason Tatum, Lonzo Ball, De'Aaron Fox, Jonathan Isaac, even Lauri Markkanen, John Collins, Luke Kennard, Harry Giles even, Monte Morris, who's playing on a good Nuggets team. He's in the rotation. OG Anunoby, Kyle Kuzma, Derek White. Those names already have proven worth to the NBA franchise that they are currently playing. Maybe, except, I guess, Lonzo Ball, but they traded for him. They had to make a deal for Anthony Davis. Outside of that, all those players have value to the team that they are on. Now, let's move on to a new rule that will be tested out in the G League, right? In the G League this upcoming season, a new rule will be tested where if a player is fouled for a 2 or 3-pointer, they will take the first free throw. If they make the first free throw, it counts as 2 or 3 points. It's meant to speed up the game, and the rules will go back to normal, as we all know and love, in the final 2 minutes. I don't get it. I think that's kind of like copying the NFL, if I'm thinking about it, because or even baseball, like fundamental ways to change your sport and just make it a little quicker for the viewer to enjoy more. This one doesn't create that much of a difference. It's a little more head scratch worthy than, oh, thank you for making this game a little faster. I can get home earlier so I can go to work tomorrow, or I can get home so I can go do something or watch more games or whatever. If you're at the game or watching it, I can do other stuff. It'll end earlier. But basketball is a fast-paced game anyway. The league scoring is an all-time high. There's tremendous athletes running up and down the court. Transition is great. Basically, every team scores 100, so guys scoring is faster. I guess just the stillness of standing and watching a guy take free throws is too long for the NBA. And I really do endorse a lot of what the NBA does. I think they usually get it right. They have the right temperature amongst social media, rules, and how they treat their players, how they treat the fans, how they brand everything. I think this one is just a reach. I don't see anything wrong with it. It takes away from guys who actually need to improve the fundamental skill of making free throws. Guys like, I love him, but LeBron shot 68% last year. I know he played half a season, but his free throw percentage has gone down each year in the past 3 to 4 years. Someone like, again, I love him, Ben Simmons. It's gone up, but somebody like that, those two people, Rudy Gobert, Russell Westbrook, his percentage went down last year. People that need to make free throws, I mean, everybody who gets fouled, and if you live in the paint, you're going to have to shoot free throws. So then if you miss that first free throw, do you get the opportunity again? And then if you make the second one, do you just get the rest of the points that you are allowed to take? Like, where does it work? Maybe this has to be more fleshed out, but I just don't see it. The game's already fast. That's really when I'm stuck. I remember working on the floor at the Wells Fargo Center last season, and I got to talk to one of the referees. I just asked, because I know how fast-paced the game is and how they play. So the referees have to run up and down to make sure they can get the best angle for the correct call on every possible play. So I asked him, if you were to guess, how many miles do you think you run a game? So an NBA working referee, if you work consistently, he said about 4 miles. So if he runs 4 miles, he's always in the game, but that's a lot. Like, that's a lot of running, and that means generally the clock is winding down for all of those. So for this rule, it takes away from guys who need to improve on the free throws, and it just adds a wrinkle that really isn't needed. Like, it's not needed. There's no ironing needed for this rule to come in place and change the way this goes, just for the sake of the first 46 minutes. And then again, is it the last 2 minutes, like the solitary last 2 minutes, so minutes 46 to 48, or is it the last 2 minutes every quarter? Because that would be odd as well. From the report I read, it is the last 2 minutes. So it just doesn't make sense. Because anyway, games are usually 2 to 2.5 hours. That's why they have movie time slots. Movie time slots last from, basketball game time slots last from, like if a game's at 7 o'clock, it'll end at 9:30, most likely. Same thing with an 8 o'clock game. It'll end at 10:30 or 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock or 8:30. It'll end at 11 or 10:30 game. It'll end at 1 o'clock. These things are put in place and they have worked. So this one is so small and minute, I don't think you will see the change as impactful of a change. But maybe that's the point, is it's supposed to be seamless, and those 7 minutes that they shave off are very important. I really don't know. All I know is that I don't agree with it. I want to take you guys through a podcast / basketball experience I had over the weekend on Friday night as I attended Rights to Ricky Sanchez, Live Ricky 4 at the former the former Electric Factory, now known as the Franklin Music Hall. It was a pretty cool time. Nice way to spend my Friday night. It was pretty dope to see just the setup. It was pretty basic, but it was cool. Had a nice projector behind them. Had a band on the right. Had, at one point during the night, everyone had to look underneath their chair to find a ticket or something. I don't know. I felt under my chair. I couldn't find it. So once I couldn't find it, I didn't care what it was because I didn't win. And you were awarded a new seat on the stage by Spike and Mike, the hosts of the podcast, on Big Barker Dog Beds, which is a sponsor of the podcast. So little cool thing like that happened. It was a pretty simple setup, how most live podcasts are set up if they don't have a specific set. Then at one point during the night, a fan took a quiz to win another sponsor of them, Kinetic Skateboarding Gear. He answered a bunch of questions, some that I didn't know. Thankfully I wasn't picked because I would have failed. And I am a big fan, but when you're there and you think you're a big fan, at least in my case, I realized I'm not the biggest fan, or at least I wasn't during the specific time that the podcast is meant for, basically the process. Brett Brown was the surprise guest of the night, the first one. He was the first interview of the night, and one thing that stood out besides the incredible reaction that everyone showed for Brett Brown is that the one takeaway story from Brett Brown was that he told a story, I believe they were in Denver, and he was mad with Jakar Sampson when he was playing point guard. So in the process era, he was yelling down to the bench to get somebody in for Jakar Sampson because he hated the way he was playing. So he was like, Larry, get in. And he realized from someone else telling him that was not the gentleman's name. He didn't use the real name to protect the person who it was because he, don't want to throw anybody under the bus like that because there's 3-4 handfuls of guys who played only a month or less for the Sixers, so it's hard. And then the other takeaway from Brett Brown's appearance on the podcast was that if he could put the 3 most asked questions, he would put Joel's health, what is it, how's Ben's jump shot, and what's his hot seat like. So basically the 3 things that he's asked about the most and has to talk about the most in his time here. He was also inducted into the Process Hall of Fame with a pretty dope banner with the quote saying, "Can you imagine if we get this right?" Then there were other festivities throughout the night. Spike's Jimmy Butler poem, and besides being a very well-written poem, you can listen to it on iTunes, Rights to Ricky Sanchez. I don't know how many times I'm going to say their name because it's in the theme song. You might, if you know, you know. But the one thing that is notable of this is that when Spike said good riddance at the end of a line in the poem, we all had to then say fuck off. So I participated even though I like Jimmy Butler and I hold no ill will because, just to participate, have fun with the rest of the crowd. Then other Process Hall of Famers, Burnergate was inducted by Mike Levin wearing the fake collar or the not so normal collar of Brian Colangelo, the big goofy one retweet Armageddon, which I had to find out about before because I don't remember this. This is a very rights to Ricky Sanchez thing. So it's basically people who believed in the process from day one, finding people's tweets of them not believing in it and tweeting them that it worked after getting the number 1 overall pick in 2017, which wound up being Markelle Fultz, who I spoke about earlier in the episode. But it was a win at the time. This all happened in that moment. They all mobilized on the internet to create Retweet Armageddon, which was inducted by Joe Giglio of WIP and Ike Reese. Then the final thing was TJ McConnell. He was the final person inducted into the Process Hall of Fame was TJ McConnell. It was very nice reflecting on just this whole time here with Spike's speech and his leading of the Game 4 win against the Boston Celtics. It was pretty cool. And the thing that capped off the night was Mike Scott's interview. The energy was really fun. It was really, really awesome to see. It was a really good 25-minute interview, honestly. Not because I was there or because I'm talking about it on the podcast. It was very enjoyable. I listened back to it a couple times. It was really fun to listen to it. First things first, on the agenda from my notables of that interview was he won't pay the headband fine. I was upset about the headband being taken away. Just who cares? It's a headband. That's how I feel. And if they just made a Nike deal or whatever, they would have made some money off it. But he won't pay that fine. It's $15,000. He said, "Fuck that." He questioned what he was thinking after he sipped Jack and Coke just Jack from the woman courtside of the Bucks game. I said Jack and Coke because that's my thing. He said he smoked my ass again at one point because Spike asked him about, all the crazy stuff during the summer, racing people at tracks, and then he said, "Smoked his ass. Where's he at? I know he's in here." And then I stood up and I was talking shit. I don't even remember what I was saying. I just kept saying what I think. I didn't notice anybody looking at me, saying anything. And then when I sat down, like 1 or 2 people asked, was like, "What'd you do?" I don't know if they were so confused. It was weird. I was like, "What'd you do?" And after what he said, I was like, "No, I foot raced him." It's obviously a better story if I remember what he said. But one part that's very subtle I picked up on, and this is actually from listening to it a couple times, is that I don't know if he misspoke, but when talking about Brand and how good of a general manager he is, getting Al Horford, and then since Mike Scott played with Al, and the Kyle Korver, who was linked to the Sixers until he signed with the Bucks, he said, "I was trying to get Kyle." So, hey, I don't know if he misspoke, but either way, it's about time the Sixers started participating in the recruitment trend of the NBA, or tampering, whatever you want to call it. So I was happy about that. He said he didn't have to shoot the Brooklyn 3 in Game 4 because the Sixers were up 1 at the time. He said he didn't have to shoot that, and obviously that's now known as cashed out. That was a really cool moment. Joel should watch Al Horford to get to the next level in his game, according to Mike Scott. So that makes all the sense in the world, because before that it was mentioned that Al Horford is Embiid's kryptonite, so now they're on the same team. What can change for Al, Joel, the Sixers, everything like that? Obviously, all these aren't serious because I talked about myself getting smoked, and the headband thing is Zaire was trash at paintball, Zaire Smith, because they went paintballing earlier that day. They asked about him slapping the hardwood in a playoff game because TJ McConnell promised that he would do it and never did. So he says he did. So he said he will. So a promise. We'll see if this one is upheld. He gave us all 2 tickets to October 8th's preseason game. So towards the end of the interview, that was pretty dope. That was really cool. I mean, yeah, why not go to a preseason basketball game? It's dope. And some point during the interview, he was asked about if the Sixers can win the championship, and he said he really does believe it. So it's nice to hear that Mike Scott, along with a bunch of other fans I know, and people that were there, believe that the Sixers can win the NBA championship. The final thing that I wanted to address on the podcast was NBA Media Day. First off, it's very overwhelming, and because all of the teams are so optimistic and excited for the season, just like the fans, and everyone thinks at least it sounds like everyone has certain goals, and it spoke with a lot of positivity and just anxiousness towards the season. They're ready to play on the court. Training camp starts the next day. Well, at least it did for the Sixers. I don't know about everybody else, but it starts around the same time. So I wanted to just say 5 takeaways from NBA Media Day that are non-Sixers. One being the quote-unquote new Splash Brothers of Steph Curry and D'Angelo Russell. I just have one issue with this. And it's a two-part issue. Just really already, they didn't play the game together. You're going to put that expectation on them. I know I feel like they're meant because they want to see the best type of play from them, and another version of something that Steph is already in would be great. But really, just so early, like can we just watch a preseason game or two and then you could do that? I still wouldn't agree with it, or I wouldn't like it, but you could do it after a preseason game happens, not when you're watching them take pull-up jumpers right next to each other. And B, the name. Couldn't come up with anything different. I don't think you can have the new Splash Brothers if the other brother's still on the team. I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking too much on that one. Next takeaway is J.J. Redick and his demand to Zion Williamson. He said when they first talked for 20 minutes, he told him, don't mess this up for him. He has 13 straight years of making the playoffs. Zion was also asked a question. He said, JJ, what are you talking to me for? I'm a rookie. So I thought that was pretty cool. I just thought that was funny. Giannis not talking about his looming free agency, which I believe is commendable, and I agree with. Why have this hang over the entire season and actually answer questions? I'm sure they're going to ask him because they have the right to ask him, but he has the right to answer whatever way. He said it's disrespectful to his teammates to talk about his contract when the team could win an NBA championship. They have the chance to get there, he actually said, but they have a chance to win. They're one of the top 4 or 5 favorites, so they certainly have a chance. I like the pivot from what other guys would do. They just did because they were asked the questions and they answered it. But he said, he declined talking about it. I think it's commendable. Paul George being out until November. So it's a takeaway because I'm not worried about it. And Paul George assured me because he said he's worked through tough rehabs before. Different part of the body. Now this time it's his shoulders. The other time was the horrific leg injury. But it's a good point and made me at ease. And Kristaps Porzingis being 100% healthy. First time in a year and a half, said he feels the best that he can. So him and Luka Doncic are going to be worth the national TV games they get and a league pass watch. Now, 10 takeaways from the Sixers. Joel Embiid losing 20 pounds. He felt like it was the need for him to get up and down the floor better and just feel healthier throughout the season. He also mentioned on the Zach Lowe podcast that he thinks he needs to do something every single day involving basketball, because if you put it down for a couple of days, it's just it wasn't the same. It's kind of what he was getting at. Also on Zach Lowe, he said the trash talking is done. I don't believe that for a second. Josh Richardson was on Zach Lowe as well, part of the episode, saying that his first 2 calls after being traded to the Sixers were Tobias Harris, former Tennessee alum like Richardson, and Brett Brown. So that makes me like Brett Brown even more because the second person is the coach. I think that's pretty cool. Like, it's cool that Brett Brown FaceTimes. It's cool Brett Brown does anything, honestly. Al Horford believes in the team's ability to shoot from 3-point range, space the floor, basically. When he said it, it assured me, I don't know if I want to believe everybody. That's what it sounds like. But theoretically, they could space the floor. I just believe we have to see it. Yeah, I'm going to go. So I'm going to put that one on standby, Al. I don't know how much I'm with you yet. Ben said in a Brian Windhorst interview that he got better for the benefit of himself and the team because Brian Windhorst asked a question that with getting Al Horford and Josh Richardson but losing J.J. Redick, losing such a great shooter, is that why he decided to improve his shooting? Because to have this team be successful, he would need to be able to help space the floor. And he said no, it was for himself and the team because he knew it would help the team regardless if different moves were made. So obviously he said he would attempt threes. That was basically the jump shot talk. Tobias Harris has been very vocal about becoming a 2-way player, which I am excited about. I like that he could possibly be playing. Oh, he's going to be playing a lot of small forwards on defense and he will have to bring it every night. So I like that. The entire team is confident with the defense, so I'm glad we all agree on that. That's a short one. Joel's minutes per game will be down, he said, because in the beginning he was playing like 36 minutes, the beginning of last season, that is. And maybe if you take it down like 4 or 5 minutes, it could help out in the long run. As well, I know I mentioned him a few other times. J.J. Redick is a big person to fill because of just what he does off the ball. Very, very, very high praise from Simmons, Embiid, Harris, Horford, Mike Scott of J.J. Redick off the ball. So there's that. There's my takeaways from NBA Media Day. Pretty overwhelming. Okay, that's been the podcast, episode 33. I am your resident JT McConnell, the homie's homie. More importantly, my real name, Justin DiVirgilio. You can follow the Outlet Pass Podcast on Instagram at the Outlet Pass Podcast and on Twitter at pass_podcast. You can follow myself at _J DiVirgilio on Twitter and Instagram. That's at _J DiVirgilio on Twitter and Instagram. This has been the Outlet Pass Podcast, the ball being my opinion, and I'm passing it out to you. Peace.